Hello YouTube, it's Tony. So today I will show you a Dungeoneering token farming guide. I'll be showing you two different setups. First is the Ironman and the mid-level, and second is the high-level setup. Now before I start, I have a really huge disclaimer. I'm not the best token farmer in the game, so this is not the most optimal strategy. However, this strategy did work for me and I did help others token farm as well. The other disclaimer is that if you die here, it is not a safe death. I highly suggest you be careful if you're hardcore Ironman. Now there is a Discord link and an FC for this, and I will leave the link in the description. Yeah, it's somewhat hard to find a team however, so keep that in mind. Here are the suggested and minimal requirements. The only requirement technically is you have to complete the Impressing the Locals mini quests. I honestly do recommend 75 magic, although you can probably do with 60 magic. It is located in the Temple of Aminishi, however that's pronounced, so feel free to roast me if I'm wrong. The basic way to get there is by using the Arc Journal to the Port Serum, and then sail to Aminishi Island, and finally keep going north. I will be showing you a little bit later how you can get there a little bit faster. For the very first room, this is what the minimap looks like. Now, you do see a demon icon, right? Well, that's basically a mini-boss, and only mini-bosses will drop tokens. You can get no mini-bosses or up to 4 mini-bosses that spawn when you enter the room. Usually there are 2 mini-bosses that will spawn. So as shown on screen, this is the label for all of the possible spawn locations on the minimap. Here is how you set up a group. Well, first of all, you just press F5 and then create a group. In the Elite Dungeons tab, you want to select Temple of Aminishi. You then want to invite 2 other players. Now if you're an Ironman, then you can only group with other Ironmen. When you've invited those players and everyone's hit ready, then you will have to hit update group. Finally, when you've updated the group, you can now teleport there instantly. See, this is a really fast way to get there. When you enter the dungeon, you only want to select regular mode. At first, only the group leader should enter and nobody else. As a group leader, you want to expand the minimap and then check the demon icons from the entrance. In this case, you have to play on a bigger screen. Now if there are 2 or more mini-bosses on the map, then you want to tell the rest of your team to join. Otherwise, just don't even bother entering the dungeon. Just leave the dungeon and then you can reroll a new dungeon again. Let's talk about the Ironman and the low-level setup. You want to use magic because it is the most Ironman friendly setup in order to clear the mobs. I honestly suggest you have a tier 75 vanquish weapon. I mean, if you don't have that, that's fine because it is still possible to do it with 3 tier 60 players. Now for armor, I am using Lunar Power. Finally, just bring any sort of emergency bank teleport. I like to use Desert Amulet too because there is a prayer altar nearby, so that way you can pretty much just keep recharging your prayer. Here is my inventory setup. Now I have air runes, and then after that you want to bring 1 or 2 prayer potions in your inventory. If you do have Gothic Staff and Vulnerability runes, then that's good for you because it does help you clear the mobs a little bit faster. You want to fill the rest of your inventory with food. I find that the easiest food for Ironman players would be Menopause fish. I mean, you do get a lot from training cooking and fishing at the same time. Moving on, we have the ability Rotation. Anticipate and Freedom are really helpful side abilities because these mobs will stun pretty often. For prayers, you want to protect either range or magic. Let's talk about the strategy for Ironman players. Now in this footage, it's not the most optimal strategy because I don't have any updated footage. There were a lot of things I didn't know at the time of this recording. Anyway, so in terms of the team, I'm a high level player with a Sun Spear, and then there's a tier 80 player, and finally, a tier 70 player. I was the only player with Corruption Blast. When your group leader tells you to go in the dungeon, they will tell you which direction to go, depending on the positions of the mini-bosses. I generally like to go north because there are fewer mobs blocking the way. As you can see right here, enemies hit really hard and accurate. You want to go to whichever path will lead to the mini-bosses. If the enemies see you, then they'll start chasing you around the map. You honestly don't want to take unnecessary damage. You're basically going to hug the wall, so this way they have a less likely chance of seeing you. When you see a mini-boss, everyone better get on it. I like to have all 3 players standing on the exact same tile. If there are healers nearby, you always want to kill them. The healers can actually heal the bosses all the way to full HP. So Tony, what does a healer look like? Well, they have an antler on the top of their head. Other than that, you just want to keep running around until you killed all the mini-bosses. When you've killed all the mini-bosses in the first room, don't even bother going to the second room. Just use your emergency bank teleport to escape and then restock the supplies. If you're a low-level player, then you do need to do this fairly often. The leader will somehow update the group again, and then you'll see an option to hit ready again. Basically, they'll reset your ready status, and then when you hit it again, they will give you the option to teleport back to the elite dungeons. Yeah, I'm going to explain later how you can do this as a leader. When it comes to wall hugging and a proper path to a certain boss, there is a particular strategy that can optimize this a little bit further. Once again, this is what the minimap looks like. Now I'm showing you this again because it is pretty important to understand the spawns before you go with the strategy. Here is the easiest way to get to the chef boss. You want to pick the far east entrance. Now the reason why you don't want to pick the western entrance is because after you kill the chef, you're going to have to walk all the way around in order to exit this place and then move on to the next mini boss. For the Olivia, if you're coming from the north side, then you want to hug the walls. This way you can avoid the melee minions from seeing you. You want to surge directly east in order to avoid that. Now if there is a north corner mage, then obviously you have no choice. The chapel boss. Now this is where you take most of the damage because there are several minis in the room. As soon as you enter, you want to surge immediately. The reason being is because all of these minions will aggro on you instantly. Finally, you want to quickly hide behind the altar, just one square of the mini boss. Finally, we have the northmost mage. Like I said before, you will aggro the melee minions in order to reach there. You see the west barrier near the chapel, right? Well, there are a couple of minions here, including healers. If you do aggro them, then you do end up risking that they will heal the big boss. That's why in this case, you want to walk through the melee minions. Let's talk about the high level setup. Once again, I'll be using magic. However, you can use range with mechanized chinchampas. The major problem is that they are lost on death, so I highly do not suggest this if you're new to elite dungeons. For armor, I'd use full subjugation, although if you do have elite tectonic armor, then you can otherwise use this. Now what's really amazing is that it doesn't degrade in elite dungeons. For amulet, you can use either blood amulet or the amulet of souls. Finally, just bring any sort of emergency bank teleport. You want to bring holy overloads, weapon poison ++, and replenishment restore potions. Finally, just fill the rest of your inventory with food. It's mostly the same strategy as above. For prayers, I will be using Soul Split and Torment. The difference to the strategy is that you can try luring and stacking multiple mini-bosses, and then you can use AoE abilities. You generally only want to kill the minions that are blocking the barriers. Like, if they're focused on you, just let them chase you, okay? At the end of the day, when you stack them all together while you're killing a boss with AoE abilities, it will passively finish them off. This is what you're going to do as a leader in order to reset the group teleport. Open up the group interface and then toggle matchmaking. Once everyone's ready, you can finally use the group system to teleport. With all that being said, you'll kill the mini bosses in room 1 and then leave and finally regroup. It's not very difficult once you understand the feel of this, but it's honestly a little bit hard to learn at first. I mean, when I first discovered this method, I died pretty often, even in story mode. It will definitely take time to learn, okay? Just be patient. By using an Ironman friendly setup, you can get a base tokens per hour rate of around 80k. It's also the fastest way to get things like Bone Crusher or even the Charming Imp early on. If you don't believe me, then I do have a 45-minute footage. By having 3 tier 90 weapons, you can get an average of around 150k tokens per hour. I've seen people say that you can get like 200k or even 300k tokens per hour. My teammates kinda had to bank a little bit often, so it kinda slowed things down here. As for the combat XP per hour, I got almost 1.2 million magic XP per hour. Yeah, at high levels, it's extremely fast combat XP per hour. Now as for loot, I got almost 3.2 mil worth of loot and 2.6k chimes. So yeah, thanks for watching and I hope it helps. If I missed anything, feel free to ask. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already because I will definitely be doing more combat guides in the future.